How are apples related to this coding concept called classes? Well, can you spot the difference between these two apples? Well, actually, you can actually see the difference in size. So the yellow apple is 13 grams while the red apple is 20 grams. The color, the yellow apple is yellow and the red apple is red. And lastly, the sweetness where it is sour and the red apple is sweet. Essentially what we did was we create this thing called classes in programming where it is a blueprint for creating objects. So let's visualize on how these classes or blueprints look like. So I have a blueprint of an apple with 3 properties: size, color, and sweetness. So basically we can just put in the size, which is for example 13 grams, the color yellow, and the sweetness to sour, and this will produce an apple or produce an object or produce an apple object that will look something like this. How about we create another apple where the size is right now 20 grams, color is red, and the sweetness is sweet, and this will create an apple object that will look something like this. So this is essentially what classes are. So there is another real world example that also uses classes. So can you guess what essentially this type of class that I'm going to go through? Well, if you guessed it, it is called shapes. And this particular shape is we're going to go through is rectangles. So rectangles has 3 properties, which is the width, the height, and the area. So the blueprints of a rectangle will look something like this. And now if I were to add the values where the width is 10, height is 20, and the area essentially is width times height. So the width times height actually looks something like a function. So actually classes can not only store values, but it can also store a function. And if we were to swap our width and height to the actual value inside it, which is 10 times 20, it will look something like this, which is 200. And this will produce a rectangle that has width of 10, height 20, and the area of 200. So therefore, classes essentially is a blueprint for creating objects that, number 1, store values of the properties, which is the width and height of the rectangles, and number 2, have functions to calculate values such as the area in the example of the rectangles, which is width multiplied by height.